This is National Rivers Month, and celebrity historian Raffi Andonian is joining us to talk about the celebration of National Rivers Month. Thanks for being here. I like the hat.
Hey, of course, I'm ready for my river run like Lewis and Clark.
Yeah, you're ready to go. Rivers, man. I mean, play such an important role in our history.
They are, and here in St. Louis especially, because think about how many rivers come together here. We have, of course, the confluence of the Mississippi River and the Missouri River, but just a little bit south of here, the Ohio River joins in this region as well. And the reason that's so important is because you can basically connect the entire continent through the rivers in this area.
Wow.
Ohio River, of course, starts in Pennsylvania, comes all the way here, so it's a connection to the East Coast. Missouri River goes to the west, and the Mississippi River connects north and south. So we really are at the confluence of those rivers. And the reason that matters is because rivers are the highways of historic times.
It's true.
And so when you think about it, you know, so many things are named after rivers, or rivers are named after peoples or destination, the same way that sometimes we call like a highway after a destination. And so those were where you would do trade, where you would exchange, of course, religion and peoples and goods and all kinds of things. Yeah. So it's no surprise that 1,000 years ago you have Cahokia here in St. Louis. Cahokia, of course, is an ancient mound culture. Many people overlook it. You go to Cahokia State Historic Site, Illinois. It's really cool. Did you realize that Cahokia is a World Heritage Site?
Oh, yeah.
That is recognized by United Nations, UNESCO. So that's pretty cool. And the reason that's so important is because the civilization is so important is because they had more than 100 mounds 1,000 years ago. We're talking a population of well over 15,000, which is a significant city at that time, if you think about it. And their influence, if you will, went all the way across to what is today Georgia, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, and south of here. So they were very influential. And not only that, but because of the river connection, but because of the river, they were able to do farming because of the floodplain. So the rivers contributed to why St. Louis was a hub before it was even named St. Louis, when it was Cahokia. Now, when Europeans arrive, they build on that. It's no surprise that you have, for example, French fur traders that are going to come here at the confluence. It's a trading hub. It already was by the Native Americans that were here. And it's no surprise then when the United States arrives that you have Lewis and Clark who end up here to launch their mission. They come down the Ohio River from the east, like we just talked about, Ohio coming from Pennsylvania. And then here they are to launch west on the Missouri River and ultimately make it to the Pacific Ocean, which transformed the history of this country. To them, of course, that was an unknown frontier. Of course, there were many peoples there, but Thomas Jefferson, the president at the time, and to Lewis and Clark, they were discovering this area from their perspective. And so that really made the United States and St. Louis a hub for a century and a half to come, and then continued to be, for example, with the Santa Fe Trail between Missouri and New Mexico from this area, and New Mexico was in Mexico at the time. How about later with the railroad hub that this St. Louis was at some point, and still is a very active railroad destination. And then how about today with highways, interstate highways? You know, we have 4 interstate highways that come together here in St. Louis, and you will not find another city that has 4 interstate highways from the grid coming together. So we are still a hub, and it starts with the rivers. Yeah,
and it starts, and rivers used to be boundaries. I mean, we cross rivers now like it's no big deal.
That's right.
It was a huge barrier.
That's right.
And when James Eads made the Eads Bridge, I found it incredible that he used to walk on the bottom of the floor of the Mississippi River with in an oaken barrel with a tube going to the top, so he could figure out what he needed to do to make
That's
that
right. That's right. That's right.
Amazing.
Now, here's another cool little story about that as boundaries. There was a road known as it was initially the British, the Braddock Road, and then later became the National Road in the United States. Early United States, before interstates, when they're first trying this concept of a federal road, that starts actually in Virginia/Pennsylvania. In that region, state boundaries were changing, or colonial boundaries were changing. And they started this road that eventually caused a war, a world war, the French and Indian War, the 7 Years' War, and then eventually in the United States was converted to what became Highway 40. Highway 40 eventually came through St. Louis, and of course Highway 40 as a name doesn't exist anymore here in St. Louis. It actually is the corridor of Interstate 64, but you know the old timers here, they call it Highway 40, and that's where it comes from the road in the East Coast coming down essentially the Ohio River pathway because of the rivers and how this naturally was a hub with the national road that started, decades before the United States existed, to think about. And that's where the term Highway 40 right here in St. Louis comes from. And I would draw it to the roots with the rivers.
There it is. He's celebrity historian Raffi Andonian. That's a celebration of National River Month. Thank you so much, Brad.
Thank you.
Appreciate the knowledge. Keep it here. We got more coming your way. Studio STL.